Welcome back, you guys, to Confessions of Two Best Friends. My name is Maritza,
And I'm Jackie.
and today we have our very first special guest. It is
Lily.
Hi. So, many of you guys may or may not know her, but we've been friends for like ever, honestly. Ninth grade.
Yes.
Okay, and ever since then, it's just been great friendships and great memories
It's
with
been
this girl.
over 10 years of
Over
friendship.
10 years.
Yeah, 10
Almost
years.
15 years.
Okay, hold on. Oh, yes, it's been a while.
It's been making. Yeah, that sounds very.
It's
we're
been
old,
a
like we're
long
old
time,
guys.
you guys. Like, we've grown a lot. We've
Mm.
grown a lot. But we brought her in specifically for today, right?
Yes. So, as you guys normally know, we always do polls for the week.
Mhm.
And this week's poll was between two topics. It's have you ever been in a toxic relationship? Versus do you have compassion/love for yourself?
Ooh.
So the audience,
You
the
guys,
followers,
you guys specifically,
have chosen.
and
Have you ever been in a toxic relationship?
okay.
Ouch. So, thing is here, it's gonna be mostly a question that we're gonna be asking to Lily.
Our beautiful Lily.
So, Lily, have you ever been in a toxic relationship?
Whew. I sure have. I sure have been in a couple toxic relationships, but there's one that really sticks out for me. As you guys know, I was in a really, really toxic relationship that ended up turning abusive. It was mentally, emotionally, and physically abusive for almost 7 years. Almost 7 years I was in that one.
Yeah.
And it was a whole thing and a half. It didn't start that way. It started really beautifully. Everything that you think you'd want in a relationship.
Yes.
That honeymoon stage.
Honeymoon.
We all know the honeymoon stage. And
Yeah.
it's a fun place to be. That's a fun place to be. Eventually it wears off. And for me, in my experience with my ex, once we got out of that honeymoon phase, it was like night and day. It was night and day. I went from being on top of the world and feeling so loved and
Yeah.
feeling like things made sense,
Yeah.
Looking back, I can see that I did not have any sort of self-love for myself, and I had like no self-esteem. And I met somebody that made me feel alive and like I was where I was supposed to be. And that first day we fell off, there was no going back after that.
Yeah.
And looking back, I knew that in my heart, but I was already so in love. I was so in love with him.
What love does, guys.
It's so powerful, right?
Yeah.
It is so powerful. And, I held on to that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I held on to that feeling, even though that wasn't the life I was living anymore. It went from being in a dream, like truly, it felt like something out of a movie. So lame, but so true.
Love be like that sometimes, you guys.
It really does.
It
It really does. And then it felt like I went from being in a romance movie to like a horror movie. And it's so sneaky that way because it didn't just like once we fell off that first time, I knew there was no going back, but I thought I could save it. And I thought I could fix it. That feeling when you're like, I can fix him, I can
Yeah.
fix me, I can fix this, That was my role in my life for my whole life, was to be the one to fix things or
Yeah.
be able to hold it together. And I tried really hard and I couldn't fix us, and I couldn't save him, let alone me or the relationship. And it was really subtle in some ways. It'd go from like a small argument about something that didn't seem important, and then we just keep having those arguments
Over and
and nothing would ever get resolved, and it was always my fault. He wouldn't take responsibility for anything, and it'd be silly things too, like, okay, you told me you were going to be home from work at 7 and I made us dinner and you just never show up, and have me
Yeah.
waiting. And you finally get home after not answering my calls and not answering my texts, and in that waiting phase is when I felt really anxious and I felt really scared because I didn't know what was happening, and I wanted to hold on to this love, right? This love of my life, so I thought. And he'd get home and like throw the dinner in my face or not eat or come home with like Subway. I'm like, I was over here making you dinner and you do it. And you came home with Subway?
She was like in the kitchen stirring it
She was
up,
a
and it's like
I was chopping, I was dicing, I was doing it. And I was like, oh, okay, like okay, but I was always confused. I was always left confused, not being able to make sense of anything. And again, that was a small thing, but then it would escalate, and then it turned into him using my like past against me. And I think that's one of those tricky things for me, at least. When I fell in love with him, he made me feel safe.
Yeah.
And he made me feel seen, and he made me feel heard.
they do that.
They do that.
That's how I think they roll you in.
Yeah, that's
like
how they get you.
Mm.
Because that's what we're all looking for. I believe that as people, everybody wants to be seen.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be heard, and everybody wants to feel like they matter.
And more importantly, everyone wants to feel love.
Everybody wants to feel love. Whether we like to admit it or not, I think that that's so true.
Yeah.
And then it started turning into these mind game things. And I don't know how familiar we are with gaslighting. That one sound familiar to anybody?
Very much.
But then this gaslighting started happening, where literally we'd be having a conversation and it would be like, okay, you just told me you want to go to the park, so I'm getting us ready to go to the park. And then I'm getting to the door and it's like, well, what are you doing? So you just said you wanted to do this, well, why would you think that? And just makes you feel crazy.
It's a crazy stage.
Just makes you feel crazy. And it happened like that is the thing. It went from being so calm and peaceful and loving to, how are we enemies now? And how do you hate me so much? Is what it started to feel like. And why? And then it's, because of my past that I shared with you, because I decided to be vulnerable with you, now you're going to throw that in my face. And then for me, that added a whole nother layer of things that I thought I got over, all of a sudden were brought back up for me. And he wouldn't let them go, so I couldn't let them go. And then it just created this world. And I used to think that my world was big. I had friends, I had a job, I was involved in things that mattered to me. I thought I was doing it okay. I was in school and I was doing okay at school. And before I knew it, I had my family in my life. And before I knew it, my whole world was so small.
Everything was just kind of falling down.
Everything was falling, and I couldn't catch it.
Yeah.
I couldn't catch any of it. It felt like my whole world and my whole life was just slipping through my fingers.
Domino effect.
Yep. And I didn't know how I got there, but all of a sudden I was living in fear, and I wasn't having any thought that crossed my brain had to be filtered through his eyes first. Like the way I saw life, the way I saw everything just completely changed, down to like the way that you talk to people at Moe's and the way that you order your burrito.
Yeah, because
I wasn't doing right.
Because if you didn't do it in a specific way, he would see it in a different way. Like, were you flirting, or like
were you flirting? The jealousy that comes in. And I think that probably happens a lot to people when we fall in love. We get protective of what we have and we want to keep it. And the jealousy just went through the roof. And it was like, I couldn't look at somebody because I was afraid he was going to say that I was doing it the wrong way. Or, I couldn't get myself dressed, because I was going to do it the wrong way. It almost felt like I couldn't breathe because I was doing it the wrong way. And through the day-to-day of someone just beating into you that you're not worth it, that you are this disgusting human, that you are stupid, that you are just all of these things, you start to believe it.
Yeah.
And once I started to believe that became my identity. Yeah. And the only person who could kind of make it better was the same person who was destroying it for me. Was him. And I knew I was in a bad situation because it started escalating.
Yeah.
And like in my heart, that gut feeling you get.
Yeah.
You know it.
You know what
But,
you're
like,
getting yourself into, and
and it's coming.
But you're waiting. It's like you're waiting for it though.
You're waiting.
Yeah.
And it it's a scary feeling because you don't want it to happen, but you know it's gonna happen. So you're kind of manifesting it to happen.
Exactly. That was a really good way to put it because it's exactly like that. And then, you know, it became a thing for me where I knew what he would get mad about sometimes. Sometimes I had no idea what was coming, but it became a pattern of predictable behavior. I knew that we were going to have these super intense highs and then worse lows. And that was almost okay with me because I got comfortable in it. I got comfortable in the chaos. I got comfortable in the mistreatment. I got comfortable in the anxiety. And I was okay with letting everything else go because I wanted this so badly.
Yeah. You were so in love.
So in love. And it sounds crazy because it's like, how can you be in love with someone? How can you want to save this when all it's doing is breaking you down? I lost, oh man, you know, I lost my family. I lost my friends. I lost everything because, oh man, we knew this was going to happen. Y'all tried to warn me and here we go. Because I couldn't see myself anymore.
Yeah.
And I forgot that life could be anything else. And if I'm being honest, which I am, I was really scared. I was really scared and I didn't know how to leave.
Oh my gosh, Lily.
So, you know, I believe it takes two to tango. And I'm not trying to excuse his behavior, but I also had a role.
Yeah.
You know, I also had a role in allowing myself to stay in this position. I think asking for help is the hardest thing.
It sure is.
Let alone taking and accepting the help. And I mean, that goes for you guys too. Like, y'all know I would just disappear for months. I would be off the grid for months and I would pop back in being like, everything's cool, you know, everything's fine. And I would just ignore the gaps of time that I was absent from my own life.
I remember there was like one point, I kept like us, like with us, like our friends stuff, like it was just something's up.
Y'all knew.
You know, I don't like this. I don't know why. But like the way that I hear Lily talking about this, it really does hit me just because of course she's our best friend. But when you look back at it, like Maritza and I and our other best friend, it's a clique of 4. And we would ask ourselves, is Lily okay? Like we would
all
get
the time. Like
we would get like scared because we knew something was up, but at the same time, you know how some people do need their like personal space. Right. We didn't want to be like on top of her. And at that point I felt like we wanted to do that, but we didn't.
We just didn't want to step over and
boundaries.
Just be like,
but now that like I do see it, I feel like maybe we should have.
But
and it kind of like, yes, you were, because she was pretty far from where we were. Yeah. But I wish we could have done something sooner. And yes, you, like she said, that, you know, that's something that she kept herself into, like, you know, as a person, because I've been in kind of not the same situation, but in a toxic relationship, you want to be with that person and there's no way getting you out.
There's no going out.
Even if I feel like even if me and Maritza were to show up and be like, Lily, like, pack your bags, you're coming with us,
I wouldn't.
I don't think it would have.
She wouldn't have. So I feel like that's another reason why I don't think we actually did do it
or intervene or anything.
Yeah, because I feel like she may not have been ready, and there's people that's why they stay in toxic relationships because they're not ready, like to discuss this and stuff, whatnot. So it's something that I do see that it's hard. You know, it doesn't just boom, you come out of it, you know?
You know, and that's the thing too, like truly that's one of the hardest parts looking back for me is I knew I had people who cared about me. And I knew all I had to do was say, I am not good. Like, this is not good what's happening. But I didn't know how to be honest because I became really afraid of him. And I also became really afraid of losing him at the same time. And there's a lot of shame that comes with it. Because from the outside, it's like, how could you let yourself do this? How could you stay in this? You know you deserve better. You know this isn't how it's supposed to go. I once heard, and I've held this really close to me, the longest distance in the world is from your head to your heart. Trying to get the two to line up. And
repeat that one more time. Yeah,
just,
please.
For the people in the back, just in case you missed that. Truly, the longest distance in the world is from your head to your heart.
Mm.
When you know one thing, but you feel another. And that's been my experience with this, but with a lot of things, you know, being able to be honest with myself is maybe one of the
Yeah.
hardest things I've ever had to do. But until I was able to do that, I couldn't change my situation. So I stayed in this relationship, and, you know, I had roommates. And as I said, it escalated. You know, it went from just like saying mean things, you know, calling me all these names and just being in my ear about it. And again, not doing anything right, and him being able to do whatever and just never feeling like I had a place was the weirdest thing. And then it escalated because when I would try to say something, you know, all of a sudden we're punching walls and there's holes right next to my head. And, you know, then it went from destroying walls. Like I remember one time completely tore up my apartment. I had like $3,000 worth of damage because there were just holes everywhere, doors broken, things smashed, furniture broken. And I'm not a huge person, but you know, this guy is bigger than me, and that matters too, it turns out. And you know, then it went from destroying other things to physical abuse towards me. And you know, I forget this stuff,
Yeah.
but it's real. And I would love to say that after the first time it happened, something changed for me, and something changed, but not in the way to get me out, in the way of I need to try harder.
Yeah.
I need to try harder and I need to be better. And I didn't know what any of that looked like. I didn't know what it looked like to be better or to try harder, because when I say I was giving it everything, I was giving it everything, while also trying to keep this under wraps. But I knew the people in my life knew things were wrong. So the only way to get rid of that was to stop responding, was to stop talking to people, and was to isolate. And that's what happens in these relationships, you know? And I think there is a difference. There's like a fine line between something being toxic and something being abusive, but the two can exist together.
Very much.
You know what I'm saying? I think when something's toxic, it's not good for you, and it takes you away from the person you are, and it takes you away from the light, is what I think. And I think we all deserve to be in the light. And I think, you know, it kind of turns into that like good versus evil sort of thing. And all I had was darkness, and then darker darkness. And, you know, I guess if I'm being honest too, I would drink, and then I would become like a 500-pound man, you know, and I'd go up to him and I'd finally have the nerve to say the things I couldn't say when I was sober, because that fear was gone from me. And, you know, that never went well. That never went well for us. And then even when I wasn't drinking, you know, I started to just get real fed up, and I tell him, he didn't like it so much. And then we just be in the same cycle, same cycle. And, you know, it'd be things too, like we got a dog because that was going to fix things. It didn't. It didn't. My poor baby, my little Flacco, you know, that was my dude. And truly that dog saved me, because this relationship got to a point where like I didn't want to live. Because I couldn't see the other side of it. Oh man. I couldn't see the other side of it. And I was like, this is how it's going to go. Because truly the way it went down for us was I was going to kill myself, or he was going to kill me. And that's how that was going to go. And for me, it got to the point where, you know, he's talking to me about murder suicides, and he's watching things on TV. And, you know, I'm not trying to get graphic like that, but this is true. And just the physical abuse kept escalating and escalating and escalating. And it'd be so crazy because he'd just be beating on me. And it's not like I didn't try to fight back, but like there was no match. And then, you know, right after, he's the same one giving me ice and like cleaning me up. And we were able to stay in our own world, in our own cocoon. And that's how he wanted it. I can see that now, because he knew people cared about me. You know, he didn't like my parents. He didn't like my friends. He didn't like anybody that got along with me, because he knew what was happening wasn't right either.
He knew that if he were to isolate you away from the ones that, you know, care and loved about you,
then we could
he knew he was gonna. He was gonna be.
He had the power.
He had the power. He had the power of this relationship, of himself, and he had the power over me. Like I said, I couldn't, there was no Lily anymore. It was just doing for him
Yeah.
and trying to save this. I ended up dropping out of school. I couldn't keep a job because my job started asking me questions.
Was that
And
because you had
because I
bruises?
had like bruises, or because my phone would be blowing up, and I
Or
mean
just his
blowing
calls
up,
and
just
Yes.
constant. Like I remember there were periods where, I kid you not, I'd have 50 missed calls in less than like 10 minutes, just back to
Oh
back to
my
back to back.
gosh.
And he knew that I was working and that I couldn't answer, but it didn't matter. And then I'd be getting threats, and so I'm over here trying to be calm, cool, and collected, but whole time I'm being sent
Like, freaked
pictures
out.
of my apartment getting destroyed. I'm getting threats that he's going to sell the dog. I'm getting threats, for my parents' life. I'm getting threats for all this stuff. And fear is so powerful.
Mm.
Fear is so, so, so powerful. And it's enough to keep you where you're not supposed to be.
Mm.
And I think that's true with anything in life. I didn't realize how much fear ran my life. Truly, if you had asked me a couple years ago, I'd be like, I'm not scared of anything. I'm not scared of
And
anything.
I believe that. I believe that of Lily, for her to say something like that.
No,
At that time, that wasn't Lily.
right?
That was not
during
Lily.
during this period,
Yeah.
our Lily faded away, and like she said, and it hurt because we're like,
We knew. Like
we knew what she
was
was going
on.
through, but we didn't want to imagine ourselves like the worst either. But then there was a period that we were imagining the worst because we're like, we can't get a hold of her.
Yep.
We didn't know exactly where she lived.
Yep.
How are we going to get to her if she needed us?
Yeah.
What if she was asking for help and we just
Blindly couldn't see
couldn't
anything
see it?
of it.
And I think that's really bad, like it hurts, and it hurts me still now. Like, I know she went through this, but it hurts for me to hear this, that she had to go through it.
Yeah.
And that you had to go through it. And this is the sweetest person I've ever met. High school, sweetest person. But to hear
for those that know Lily
her
from like high school and
Yeah.
even beforehand, like
she's the sweetest
she
person.
has been the sweetest.
And it's like, for her to go through this, it just,
I can't even
you ask
like,
yourself,
I just can't.
like, why her?
Why her? Yeah. She doesn't deserve
It's
it.
not like, yeah.
But at the same time, why not me? Like, this can happen to anybody.
does.
And it does.
And it happens to not everybody, but it happens to a lot of people. And it's just so scary. I know I keep saying that, but it's like, I knew that I was living in like a delusion. I had no touch with reality, even a little bit.
Oh my God.
And that's really scary, to be living in another world where this kind of dynamic makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It made sense that this is how we were doing things. And, after a while, after a couple years, when it was not even at the height of it getting really bad, but close to that, I tried leaving. And I don't think people talk about this part enough. It's not like you can just leave.
No.
It's more dangerous when you try to leave, because they sense that they're losing the control. Like we were just talking about them having power.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one time my mom came down because my roommate had called my mom to be like, I think you need to come see Lily.
Like now
You need to get down here. So my mom drove 4 hours, and she showed up at my door, and I just lost it because I had to be honest. Yeah. And it just so happened the night before we got into it, so she could see it on my face. And she was like, you need to come. Like, you need to come with me. And I was like, you don't understand. I can't.
Because if you do, it can only
it's gonna get worse. And she convinced me, and I got in the car with her, took Flacco, got in the car with her, and the whole time, I mean, when I say I thought I was gonna throw up, like I was dry heaving, because the body remembers things that we forget.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's this really great book called The Body Keeps Score, and it just talks about how the body stores trauma, which I think a lot of people experience on many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in like survival mode. That's how I was living, was in survival mode. And I got in the car with my mom. He came home, so I wasn't there. started freaking out. I started getting all these threats again. We were maybe an hour and a half away, and I was like, if you don't turn this car around, I'm going to get out and I'm just going to start walking back. Like, I have to go. I have to go back. This is going to get really bad.
It's gonna get real bad and real quick.
Real quick. And I was really nervous for their life too. I mean, I'm really not even kidding. Like, there were weapons involved, there was all this stuff. And the scariest thing, I think, is a person who has nothing to lose. Because a person who has nothing to lose
We'll do
But
anything.
they'll
will do anything.
Anything
and
and
they don't
anything.
care about it.
They don't care. They don't care at all. And my poor mother she really didn't want to. She really didn't want to turn around, but we did. And I went back. And she left. And I stayed. And, you know, I certainly paid the price for trying to leave the first time. And I stayed in that little cocoon, like you said, and things just kept getting worse and worse, like being pushed out of a moving vehicle and just all of these things, like down the highway. And, you know, I remember thinking, like, this can't be my life. It felt like I was watching it happen to someone else. Again, like I was watching the horror movie.
Exactly. You always see it happening to other people, but not thinking it would happen to you.
Because it can't happen to me, you know, but it can, because it did, and it does. It happens to people. And then it just kept going and going. And, you know, one night I went over to my friend's house and I crashed at her place. Next thing I know, I'm waking up in my apartment. No dog, no phone, no keys, no money, no nothing. Everything was gone. And I was like, how did I get here? I remember falling asleep at my friend's house. So I walked over to her place, and I mean, I think she was feeling the same way you guys probably felt. She was like shaking and crying, and she was like, you're alive. And I was like, whoa.
Like, what
What
happened?
happened?
What
Yeah.
happened? She told me that while I was sleeping, and I was out, because, you know, when you're in survival mode, you're hyper vigilant and you're just always up and you're
Yeah.
always on guard and you're always just waiting, like you said, waiting for it to go down. And I felt safe at her house. I fell asleep. He had come over, picked me up, threw me over his shoulder, took me back to my apartment while I was sleeping, took everything, and I woke up to nothing. And I went to another friend's house because I was scared. I was like, he's gonna come back. He's gonna come back. And it wasn't until like 3 days later I finally got a hold of him, and he was on his way to Las Vegas. He was driving across the country because that's what he wanted to do with me. He wanted me to go with him to Vegas. Y'all, if I was only a couple hours away from you guys, from my safety and my support, what the heck am I gonna do out in
When you're
Vegas on the
right.
other
Whole
side of the
flight
country?
away.
That's a whole nother level of isolation.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's like the desert.
literally,
Sorry, but,
literally
like,
the
it
desert.
is.
And he wanted me to come, but I didn't go. I didn't go for a while. And fast forward, I eventually went out there because he was being so sweet. He was being so sweet and he was being so loving.
And then that's when it's like, maybe he can change.
Yeah.
Maybe he can change.
Maybe.
We just needed a little bit of space. Maybe we just need to be somewhere else.
Or how it is. Maybe we had to go through a rocky road to
exactly.
like get to where we need to.
This is all part of us growing together,
Ugh.
right? I mean, the things that we tell ourselves. And I eventually went out there. I was there for two and a half months. And I remember calling my mom and I was like, I need to leave because this is about to be the same thing. Nothing had happened yet,
But you just
But
felt
I-
like
But she
this
sensed it.
like we
this
said about
is-
that
yeah,
gut
this
is
feeling.
about
You
to, this
sense
is
it.
about to happen again.
This is about to be the same thing, and I'm on the other side of the country, and
With
I don't
help.
know
No
what
one.
I'm gonna do with nobody.
Yeah.
So I, told him I was born in Colombia. So I told him that I needed to go back there and do some like volunteering, and he was able to get on board with that. So I came back to Arlington. I went to Colombia, and for the first time, I was able to sit totally away from him
And be able to breathe.
and be able to breathe. It's like my shoulders dropped and I breathed for the first time. And at this point, we've been doing this for like 5 years. Wow, that's crazy, but it's true. And, I ended up living in Colombia for almost 2 years. I got a job there, thinking that this was the distance we needed and it was going to be easy to break up from here. He got on a plane and he came down to Colombia. He got himself a passport, came down. I get a call that he's at the airport, and I'm like, why are you here?
He
You
didn't
know?
tell you.
He didn't tell me.
Got it.
He didn't tell me.
Got it.
I get a call that he's at the airport from him, and I'm like, there's no way, because this is crazy. You came to another country?
Right.
But he did. And instantly, all those same feelings of like survival, and I could feel it in my bones.
Charged up again.
And before I knew it, there we were in the same thing. And he'd do this thing where he would like self-harm. And I remember him just being in my face, freaking out about me not getting to the airport quick enough. You know, I found him an Airbnb. I got him set up. We get there, drop off bags, and I'm like, you're really here. Like, hey. And he just started punching himself in the face, gave himself black eye. Then he went for me because it was one of those things where, like, okay, if you call the cops, like, who are they going to believe? Like, we're both messed up.
Yeah.
And he used to pull that with me when we were back in the States. And, you know, that's the other thing. People will be like, well, if the cops came, I'm like, you don't understand. Like, he's watching me. He's right there watching me talk to the cops.
Yeah, it's you don't feel comfortable.
Don't feel comfortable.
Not
Don't
at
trust
all.
it. Don't feel safe. Fear is powerful. And by some miracle, looking back, like, not to get like that, but the universe had me. I was able to get him back to the States, and I stayed. But he continued with this like dynamic through the phone even. And I remember he just used to turn off my phone and be like, cool, if I can't hear it, then it's not happening.
Yeah.
And that's not really how it works, it turns out. You can't just ignore these things away. And eventually I came back to the States, and there he was waiting. And I moved myself into my own apartment, did not invite him to come live with me, but he just started showing up at my parents' house. You know, hey, I'm here to surprise you, making it all cute. And I was like, I know why you're here. Like, I know why you're here.
Yeah.
And he ended up moving in with me. We only lived together. That was in November of 2020. No. Yeah. No. I don't know. It was in November 2019. 2019. It was right before COVID hit. He moved in November. We lived together for 4 months. And then those might have been the worst months ever. The abuse was the worst it had ever been. I was finding like firearms and things, and I'd said it before, like I knew that he was gonna kill me, and then it came almost true. And the last time I seen him, he was abusing me in my living room. I passed out. I woke up and he was just tearing stuff up. And my dog was hiding in my bedroom closet. So, I mean, this big pit bull, harmless, in case you don't know that about pit bulls, they're good. And I just went in there and I held him, and he was shaking. And I just remember holding him. And me and my ex had been going at it for, I kid you not, like almost 10 hours at this point. And it all started because he moved the couch to the other side of the room.
Oh my God.
And when I walked into the house, the first thing I didn't say was, thank you for moving the couch. Because those weren't the first words out of my mouth, 10 hours of just terror started and went on. And this is real life, y'all. And I just held Flacco, and I was just waiting for him to be done. And he's just stomping around and breaking stuff and telling me all these things he's about to do to me. And again, I woke up from being passed out in my living room, and I was reaching for a wrench because I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah.
That was your like.
Do you think that was like kind of your like a wake up call after that?
I knew, it's like a voice came to me, and it was like I knew that if I didn't leave then, I wasn't gonna make it. I knew right then if I didn't leave that day, because that had happened plenty of times. Plenty of times I thought he was gonna kill me. But it was that time that I was like, I'm in my own apartment. My parents are less than a mile away, and I'm gonna die right here.
Yeah.
And that's not how my story's supposed to go. That would have been really sad.
No one.
But it didn't.
But it didn't. So I waited for him to pass out. I took my dog. I went to my parents' house, and I was there for like a couple hours. I waited for the courts to open, and I went down there. My dad took me down there, and at this point, y'all, I was like 90 pounds. Like, I dropped all this weight. I looked sick. I looked like I was dying. I had no color. I had no life in my face. You could tell that I was at the end. And my dad looked at me and he was like, you look like you're dying. You have to do this. And I was like, so I went into the court and I filed for a protective order. And that was a whole nother journey. The courts don't make it easy. I had all this proof. I had all these witnesses. I had all these pictures. I had all these dates. I had all these texts. But it's almost like they don't want you to get it. And each time you have to keep telling your story. And each time you have to go through it all over again with this person, this judge, that judge. And it was a thing. And I walked out of there having filed the protective order. And, you know, he's blowing up my phone. I miss you. Where are you? You know, are you okay? Like, where's the dog? Still trying to hold on to it. But because I had just filed, if I replied, then I'd be in violation of the protective order.
Yeah.
And when I tell you that was the hardest thing. Whoa. It was, because I felt like I had abandoned my family. And I felt like I had abandoned any hope of love that I had. I thought he was the one. You know, but that's not what love is. Love doesn't hurt you like that.
No, it doesn't.
So I filed the protective order, and, you know, COVID hit, and by some miracle of the universe, they still heard my case. And he didn't show up. Which
Good.
I think was good, because I don't know if I could have sat up there and testified
With him being
there.
And like him eyeing you down, like
Eyeing
you're
me down.
doing this.
Like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure? And truly, I don't know if I would have been strong enough to do it had he been there. So again, I think the universe had me.
Yeah.
And I still had to get up there. I still had to testify. I still had to do the whole thing. But I did it.
That's good though.
But I did it. And I ended up being granted the protective order, and it went on from there. And I had to give him the dog, because I knew if I kept Flacco, he was going to stay. He was going to stay around. So I had to say goodbye. Like, it sounds silly, but that dog was like my child, you
Dogs
know?
are children.
And dogs are people too.
They are. They have feelings.
They do.
We all have our own little babies.
Right? Little Jersey. And Jersey and Flacco were friends anyway. But I had to say goodbye to everything I thought I loved and everything I thought my life was going to be.
Jersey.
Yeah, Jersey, featuring the Munchkin. And then it got really lonely and really dark. And, you know, you'd think, okay, good, you left. Like, that's it. It's a wrap.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until it was over that I was able to see what it was, if that can make sense. Like, once I wasn't in it anymore, I was able to see what it did to me and my life, and
How it consumed you.
how it consumed me.
Yeah. It's not something easy and light. Once you start to like sit back and watch and think about it, like you're rewatching it, and it's like, that was what I was in. That was my life. That was my life.
That was my life. And at that moment, I was just okay. I was fine with that.
I was fine.
Yeah.
Everything was fine. It's like that silly meme where everything's on fire, and it's like, it's fine. It's fine. I mean, that's what it was. But then to sit with it after is when all of the feelings came out. And I'm not a fan of feelings. I'm learning to embrace them, because that means I'm human and that means I'm alive. But they are heavy. I mean, y'all know feelings of the heart, matters of all this stuff are heavy.
Those are the
Those
ones.
are boom, 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 boom.
Exactly. Those are the ones. And, you know, then my journey of healing began. And I don't know if I'm ever going to hit the point of being healed, but I'm a lot better today than I was, because that's not my life anymore. But I had to like relearn everything. Truly, it felt like being a baby giraffe. Like, I guess I don't know what it's like to be a baby giraffe, but I imagine, you know, it's learning how to stand without shaking.
No, but it's true though.
And it's learning how to stand on your own feet again and find my footing in my life.
I like that.
But, yeah, I
think-
like that.
I think that's what baby giraffes do,
That's a
too.
great comparison,
You
though.
know?
But,
And none of it has been easy, but it's all been worth it,
yeah.
because I think I'm finding my light again, and I have my friends again.
It
And
does.
Right here.
It
Right
That's them.
Even though we're missing one more.
And one more,
but
but she's right here in spirit. She's here.
Yes.
But you know, I really missed you guys.
This is our Lily,
We
okay?
missed you too. I'm telling you.
Oh, I really missed you guys, and truly, like, it breaks my heart that, you know, when you're going through it yourself, you're like, this shouldn't be affecting anybody else. This is my life, and you know, it's hurting me. But recognizing the pain I caused other people, because when you watch someone go down and you don't know how to help them, and you can't help them because they're not willing to do it for themselves, that's a hard one to live with.
Yeah.
But we all have a story. We
We
all
do.
go through things because it then molds us into the person that we're becoming. And honestly, from the moment that you like were in this relationship to where you are now, you have bloomed to like a beautiful. She was in a cocoon, but now she's in a beautiful
She's a
butterfly
beautiful
herself.
butterfly.
And it's like, and that's something we're super proud of. Like, honestly,
Thank you.
you are taking your steps, and it's alone. You're doing these alone, and you're alone as in
yourself
like
and
bettering
just
yourself
growing
and doing it for you, not for us, for
for
you.
you.
Right.
And that's something that I think we are super proud of you doing.
Thank you.
Because every time we see her, because sometimes we do go months without seeing each other, but every time we see you, you're just like blooming into the person, like bright, and it's like that darkness is over with, you know. And then I do want to say that everyone has something going on that we may
Yes.
not know.
Yes.
And like how me and Jackie always say, be kind
Yeah.
and be able to understand
Yes.
oneself and everyone around them, because you just don't know
You don't.
what they're going through.
Yeah, you may see her smile, but deep down inside,
Mm.
she's fighting. She's still fighting those demons, like, you know, like with yourself. It's self-talk type thing.
It is.
But like, she's doing it.
Yeah.
She's making it happen, and she's letting it be known that to one, toxic relationships, it's something that happens to a lot of people. It's something normal,
does.
actually, which is pretty bad. Two, you can ask for help. Yes, it's gonna suck or it's gonna be hard, but eventually you will need help if you really want to get out of this toxic relationship. And then three, once you're out of it, you're gonna thank yourself a million times. A million times.
It's
And
true.
I am super, super, super proud of you. Like, literally, I am like
Yes.
so proud of you. Out of the four of us, like the steps that you take,
Oh.
yo, I'm just like, wow, like she is so brave to
Lily
do
has
this.
grown a lot.
Yeah.
Out of
Thank
us, she has been the one
But
to
you know,
grow.
the thing is like, I'm able to do these things for myself because I see you guys doing it for you too. And like you just said, everybody's going through something. Everybody has a story. And I think it is the greatest disservice to decide that our story doesn't matter, because it does. Like, we
Yeah.
can learn something from everybody, but we also have things to teach. And recognizing that you have power over your own life, even when it doesn't feel like it, you know? So,
Yeah. But it looks like mommy duties are calling for Maritza, so we might have to wrap this up.
Yes.
So
you can come out of it. You can come out of it. You don't have to do it by yourself. And you're not crazy or bad for finding yourself in a position like that. And you don't have to stay there.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay there.
yeah. So again, one thing, thank you, Lily, for coming on and expressing and
Sure.
sharing your story.
Your story and everything.
So we
Thank you,
appreciate you
guys.
and we love you a lot.
I love you
dearly.
guys
So much
too. And I'm
So-
proud of y'all. And thank you for letting me guest appear. Thank you for letting me guest appear too. Thank you.
But with that being said, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this episode.
Yes.
Again, you're not alone. Ask for
Ask
help
for
if
help.
needed. And thank you for all the love and support. And if you have any questions or anything, hit us up. You can hit Lily up.
You can.
You never know. She might give you little pointers if you're going through it. So
Yes,
You're not alone.
definitely. But
with that being said,
yes, have a beautiful day.
take care.
We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.